Here's a little picture I made of Miyazu Basho. Miyazu Basho was a poet from Japan in the 1600s, and he is an inspiration to me today, and that's my reason for making this video. I've always loved haiku. It's an art form that's really easy for students to participate in. It's basically a poem with 3 lines, 5 syllables, 7 syllables, and 5 syllables make up each line. So it's a no pressure thing to do. And I've always liked writing haikus. I think they're clever. I like reading them. I think that the artwork that I see that goes along with them, if I've ever saw it online in a post, is simply beautiful. And so what I didn't know is that haikus usually refer to a season, summer, winter, spring, and fall, and they have a history that stems from a longer version of poetry that had a lot of rules to it, very elaborate poetry writing. And at the beginning of this long, elaborate poem, there would be a first verse, and that would be the haiku. And so that was a very famous Japanese form of poetry for a long time. And what Basho did is that he just shortened his poems to the length of the first stanza of a longer poem. And he traveled around Japan, and as he traveled, he just wrote haikus to kind of memorialize where he was. He appreciated nature. He appreciated the transcendence of nature and how things are not always perfect. And so he kind of embraced the idea of wabi-sabi, which is a appreciation for the natural beauty of nature or design. And also too, that if it's perfectly perfect, then it's not right, because everything in nature is a little bit organic. We're used to seeing that word used a lot. So in an organic form, things are not just perfectly symmetrical. So if you have a tree, you've raked underneath the tree and the ground looks all even, and then a few leaves just tumble off the tree and land on the ground. That's wabi-sabi design. It's a little bit of sprinkled in there of something a little bit more like imitating nature in an organic fashion. So anyway, what does this all have to do with my art? This idea of things being natural, organic, wabi-sabi, maybe short and sweet kind of summary of the point. The transcendence of nature and really kind of being in the moment. Well, this is what it has to do with it. When you create art, you really do synthesize something down into a format. If it's 8 by 10 by 14 or some kind of crazy size, like I seem to pick these crazy size formats, and then Craig has to make a frame for it or something. But anyway, you pick a support, a format, and then you make this creation, and it synthesizes huge ideas down into one piece, and it kind of comes forward. And as you're working on it, I know my process is to listen to music or somebody speak or read poetry, or people talk about, I don't know, their experiences. So I like to have sometimes some noise in the house, or music, which is not always noise, but there's construction going on next door, so that is a lot of noise. A lot of times I do like to just listen to the birds and nature and not have any music on at all. That seems to be my favorite thing to do, but we have this construction going on, so there's always like something banging out there, and I don't like the progress of it because they ruined a beautiful, beautiful canyon. But that's progress, you know, that's life in California. So anyway, I have noticed that whatever I'm listening to has a direct reflection on my mood, and that translates into the mood of the piece. And so I thought, well, wouldn't it be interesting if I wrote a haiku first to go along with the piece, and then as I was creating the piece, I could, if I got off track either by the lyrics of a song or a thought or something that I was listening to, maybe I could redirect myself back into the piece and say the haiku to myself, maybe write it out, have it in front of me. Similar to a lot of artists who have incorporated a saying, an affirmation, like you can do it or something into their artwork, or peace, love, joy, you know, that sometimes is enough for somebody, and then they'll actually incorporate those words. When I do a piece, I have a very hard time incorporating just one word. Um, I try it. I've done it. Some of my artists I admire do it all the time. It just feels forced for me. But at the same time, I realize that the written word is important, or at least the idea of what your art is. So you could say, this piece of art definitely emulates this idea. And so, anyway, that's where the haiku comes in. Whether or not the haiku will be published with the print, like printed on it, or if it'll be an informational piece that is delivered with it or on the back of it as a message, I'm not really sure if it's important for everybody to be reading that message, because there's another caveat to this whole thing about the written word on a piece of something, is that each piece has its own meaning to each person. If you superimpose your words on something that might have looked like anger to you is a beautiful flower to somebody else. So see how that can change. And so you want your art to be able to mature for many, many different people. So I think I'm going to be careful with the idea of incorporating the haiku in the piece. I'm not going to do that always, maybe sometimes. Maybe put it on the back so someone can look at the piece and maybe buy the piece without looking at the sentiment that came with it, or the abstract idea, because of course haikus don't say it all, and isn't that the beautiful thing about it? So anyway, that's it. I found an artist. His name is Basho, and he took on that last name, and I really, really am excited about this, and that's why I wanted to share it in the form of a video.